In this video, I'm going to show you how to post-process your basses. I've got open here a Serum, and I've just put the basics on it to begin with. So I've got a sub bass, oscillator A, oscillator B, and a filter, and then an envelope connecting to the cutoff. And it sounds something like this. And I believe that to be a pretty good bass sound. So what I've done is I've played around with the different areas, I've picked wavetables, I've messed about with the unison, with the octaves, added a sub, added a type of filter, and then just messed around with all these settings until I've got this cool sound. And then once you've gone through, found your wavetables, connected them all together, created either a whoop sound or a sustained sound, whatever you're after, it's then time to post-process. So I always start by post-processing on Serum. And my favorite two things to do are distortion and compression. So this is the Distortion FX on Serum. And there's loads of different options you can do. You can use like a soft clipper like this, and then you can increase the drive. And this is just the amount of soft clip you're applying to it. And then you can change the mix as well. So if you're unsure to begin with, the best thing to do with a mix is to leave it around 80% and to do this for everything, just because then you're not fully applying everything to it. Now let's have a look at the different distortion types. So let's just go through them one by one and I'll tell you what I think of each one. So this is tube. This is a really good bass one. I use this on quite a lot of sounds. I'd recommend it. And then soft clip is if you just want a little bit of distortion. Hard clip is if you want it to be a little bit more powerful. And then we've got diode 1, which is for crazy heavy basses. And diode 2, which is just a little variation of diode 1. I often found that diode 1 sounds better. And then we've got linfold, which I don't think I've ever used because it's just stupid. And then sinefold, again, which is a bit stupid. And then zero square. This can sometimes sound good, but it often detunes your bass and makes it unusable. Same with downsample. I've used this like a couple of times maybe, but I wouldn't recommend it to begin with. And then we've got asylum, which is a little bit like the diode ones. It can be useful sometimes. Rectify, which again a little bit advanced. And then we've got X shaper, which I've not really used, and sine shaper. Now this one's pretty good as well, so it's worth experimenting with that one. And of course stomp box, which is really good. I highly recommend trying stomp box out. And then tapes that, and then it just goes back to the beginning. So for the purpose of this sound, let's just use a basic soft clipper. But my top 3 to use are probably diode 1, stomp box, and tube. Now let's have a look at the compressor. So I believe that when you've got a distortion and a compressor on, that's what really starts to build up the foundation of your sounds. And this is what most producers will use to get like a high quality bass sample. So the main things to focus on with the compressor is this multiband button and then the gain button. You don't really need to change these ones too much. I found that changing these doesn't really affect the sound that much. You can play around with the attack and decay, but again, it doesn't really do that much. It's mostly just this button. And then you can also move these as well. It's a little bit like OTT. Listen to the difference though between this is off and this is on. Normally it just makes your sound way more professional. And then normally I just use this gain button to turn it to the volume it was previously at. So here. So it's at -15 here. And if I turn this on, goes to like -6, and then I can just use this to like turn it back. About 12, that's pretty good. Now once you've gone through your distortion and your compressor, there's all these other effects available to use. So there's chorus. Now this can go a bit crazy if you use the full amount. So I like to just apply a little bit if I feel like the sound needs it. And all these little things along here, you can like add a little bit of each one. So this one I've got a little bit of hyper, and it can just build up the sound slowly. And flanger. Now if you turn this up too much, it just sounds weird. But if you have like a little bit amount, it can sound pretty cool once you stack them all up. Again with the phaser, sounds really weird, but if you just have a little bit. So these ones are all ones worth having a little mess around with. The chorus can like increase the amount of frequencies playing, and the hyper can make it sound like more wide. And then you've got the flanger and the phaser. If you've ever used DJ decks, they're a bit like the effects on there. Now let's have a look at the next section, which is delay and reverb. Now these are both pretty good effects, if you listen. But I tend not to really use them on Serum themselves. I'll always add my reverb post processing. So I'll do it in the DAW, and I'll usually use Valhalla Room to do that. And the same with delay. I'll usually use like a Ableton or FL Studio plugin. So like, look, for example, Fruity Delay Bank. This is really good. And I just prefer using these kind of things rather than the ones inside Serum, as I'm not always going to be using Serum for delay, and I just like to keep it consistent. So I just turn these off for now because we don't want to use them. We'll use them later on. Now the last two effects in Serum are EQ. Now this is crazy overpowered, this tool, because you can add different modulation to it, and I can like apply LFO 1 and envelope 1 to different elements in it. So I can boost frequencies just when the envelope is playing. So for example here, it's boosting the mid-range and then it goes down the low range as it goes down. If I turn this up, and you can really start to create some crazy sounds. So let's leave it like around there for now. And then you've got the final one, which is the filter. Now this is the same as the filter here, but you just got another one, just in case you want to do something crazy extra. For example, I put a combs on it here, and now it sounds from this to this. Or you can just put a normal one on it if you want to take some of the highs off and boost the drive. It's just there to experiment with further and see if you can come up with any crazy sounds. I just want to take a quick break from this video to let you know that my website arcnade.com has loads of Serum presets, sample packs and training videos to get your hands on, so make sure to check that out. Link in the description. Let's get back on with the video. So once you've gone through and you've experimented with all the effects on Serum, there's only so much you can do, and that's where the post processing comes on. And this is where you'll need various plugins. So as you can see along the right hand side here, I've got Pro Q3, OTT, Decimort 2, FabFilter Saturn 2, RC20 Retro Color, Camel Crusher, Trash 2, and Pro Q3. Now I believe these to be the best plugins for sound design. So let's have a look and explore why that is. So this is the sound we've got at the moment. Now I use my Pro Q3 to take any low end off. So if I put this around here and turn it on, it will get rid of any sub range, and then I can add a sub in later on. Now I always start my post-processing with an OTT, just because it tends to give the best outcome. So if I turn on this OTT, and then when I'm using OTT, I'll always change the depth until it sounds pretty normal. So anywhere from like 10 to about 70-ish is normally a sweet spot. And then you can change this time, so the higher it is, the less application this OT2 will have. So you want to have it like around about 100 to 1000, depending on how much you want to apply it. And then you can change these a bit like the compression tool in Serum. So that sounds pretty good on 20 depth. And then I've got Decimort here, and on this I tend to just use the action movie setting just to see what it sounds like. And then I can change the amount that's being applied here, the cut off here, and then the res as well. And then along the bottom here, there's loads of different presets you can just go through and see what kind of sounds you can come up with. So now I've got FabFilter Saturn 2, and I tend to just go through all these settings here and see what the presets sound like. And then if I find one that sounds really good, I'll go in and adjust the parameters. And I normally change this drive button here, and then I can have a play with these bands along here as well. And I can change the type along here as well. And then we have RC Retro Color, which is a crazy plugin that does 6 different things. And this is really good if you want to add like a wobble to your bass. Can you hear that? You can also add noise to it. So it'll do like a white noise over it for you. And then you can distort it, add digital. You can add space as well, so you can add like reverb to it. I can just decay down. And then you've got this magnetic tool as well. And then I can change the magnitude along here. And you start to get some crazy sounds with this. And then we've got Camel Crusher as well, which is another type of distortion. And I love using the British clean setting on this and just messing around with the distortion, the filter and the compression. And then finally we've got Trash 2, which you may or may not have because it's recently been discontinued. But on this I'll use the multiband setting and I'll just go through. So I'll just pick a range for the mid-range. So from like 300 to 2.4 I've got it on here. And I'll just apply something to this. So I'll go through all these. Saturation is normally pretty cool. Little popper, gentle push. These ones are quite good. And apply something to it and then change the amount it's being applied to here. And then I'll do the same on number 3. And then pick something and change the amount. And then right at the end, I'll normally put another Pro Q on, and then it will get rid of any low end that's been brought back in by these plugins. You see how that's got rid of loads again. And then on the end, I'll always have my Pro L. And then slot 9 will be where my sidechain is. Now obviously this sounds a little bit crazy, this sound. Because I won't be using all these plugins at the same time. I'll normally pick like 3 or 4 to use. So I might have something like this. Like an OTT, a Decimort, a Saturn 2. And then in this I might have like, I might not have all these turned on. That sounds quite cool. That's pretty cool sound right there. You can change this release. Stop any clicking. And then once you've built up a sound and you've done all the post-processing on it, you can then bounce it. So if you're doing like a sound design session, which I recommend doing every now and then, you can like play this, and then you can bounce this as a WAV file, and then you can bring it back in. So if I just quickly bounce this, I've then got this sound here. And then I can start to work with this sound. And this is especially good for wub basses. If you're doing other types of basses like wobbles and sustains, it's going to be a little bit more complicated. But say I've got this sound, and now I can layer it with other sounds. So if I had a sub bass, I could export that MIDI as well and start to layer everything together. And then I can use like these things to like shape it. And sometimes it's just a little bit easier to be able to see the sound and the shape it's making, rather than just having a MIDI and not knowing exactly where it's been applied to and how it fits in with the drums and any other thing you've got going. And especially if you're layering it as well. So if I had like another sound here, and then I wanted to make sure they were all the same, I could just go in and adjust them all like this, and then give them all a little spot on my mix down and combine them together and put them in a group and so on and so forth. And then you'll start to build up your sounds. So what I recommend you do is go away and just experiment and make like, say like 20 different sounds on Serum and export them all in different notes, label the notes, and then come back and bring them all into WAVs on your DAW, and then just start layering them, applying all these different post-processing effects to them, group them all and put them into a bus, like a bass bus, and then see what you can put on top of that, all of them together, and just mash up loads of different sounds and see what you can come up with. And that's the best way of getting your sounds to sound like super professional. You can do it with just one Serum sound, but it helps to layer it loads if you're using especially wood basses. And also, if you have any other methods for sound design, please leave a comment down below. It'd be really helpful to know what kind of things you guys do to make crazy sounds. And I'm sure it'd help other people watching this video to find out what exactly you do and any tips and tricks you may have. It would really be appreciated. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed, please leave a like, helps out a ton. Make sure to check out my website, lots of sample packs and coaching to get your hands on, and I'll see you all in the next one.